Everyone. I'm Ashley Rayner. I'm a librarian at NORC at the University of Chicago, and I'll be moderating the Worlds of Wonder panel. Worlds of Wonder celebrates speculative fiction that stretches imagination from fantasy heists to magical histories, inviting readers into richly built worlds full of possibility. I am so excited to talk about these books, and I'm just as excited to introduce our authors. They're going to come on stage. Chiara Bullen, author of The Inn at the Foot of Mount Vengeance, published by Del Rey Penguin Random House, about an academic who wants to investigate adventurers but ends up doing self-exploration instead. That's how it always goes, isn't it? Naomi Ishiguro, author of the Rainshadow Orphans, published by Simon and Schuster, Saga Press, Simon and Schuster, about a found family who finds magic and fights injustice. H.G. Parry, The Witch Below the Dreaming Wood, published by Redhook, Hachette, about a librarian who dreams of the Lady of the Lake while everyone else in England is dreaming about King Arthur. K.S. Shay, author of Portrait of a Witch Undone, published by Erewhon Books, Kensington, about a witch who might push herself too far with a mystery involving the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum and her coven. And last but certainly not least, Stephanie Williams, author of Temporal, published by Mad Cave Studios. Mad Cave, about a mom who left behind a life of time-traveling thievery, but gets pulled back in because her son wants to do some retro gaming. Very relatable for all the moms out there. So, HG isn't able to join us today because she lives in the magical land of New Zealand, I want to say. But we're going to play a little video to let her tell you about her book, and then we will jump right into the questions. I wrote these questions too, but she did hers on this all on her own. So, thank you.
It's 1941, the height of the London Blitz, and people all over the world are having mysterious dreams that seem to herald the return of Arthur at Britain's darkest hour. Meanwhile, a young librarian sent to catalogue a mysterious library in North Wales is beginning to have dreams of her own. Only hers are not of Arthur, but of Nimue, Merlin's apprentice, and they seem to herald a return of something far more dangerous. I think it's the same reason that all myths stay with us. On the one hand, they're just really wonderful stories. They're strange, they're fantastical, they're filled with danger and romance and all the good things. On the other hand, the characters are so deeply human. They're grappling with the same questions that we're grappling with today. How to build a perfect society, how to reconcile duty and love, what price are we willing to pay to keep to our own moral codes? How do we face death and failure and loss? They've been told and retold so often because they have so much to say, but also because they just give us the language to talk about so much. So many. So the Arthurian part of this book really only covers the final days of Camelot. And so a lot of the really fun, weird, great quests from the height of the Round Table had to be left out entirely, or just at best just referred to in passing. So many. Most importantly for this book, I really wanted more Lancelot. He was my entry point into Arthurian myth when I was a child, and I read Antonia Fraser's King Arthur stories. He's so crucial to T.H. White's The Once and Future King, which is in turn very crucial to this book. And the relationship between him and Guinevere and Arthur, that iconic love triangle, is so complicated and fascinating and feels so modern in so many ways. So I dealt with a lot of that, but I had to leave out everything about Elaine of Astolat, which I would have loved to have told. Everything about Galahad, obviously his son, the perfect knight, and that was really upsetting because I think it would have made the story, obviously, like everything, it would have made the story a lot richer in some ways, but it also would have been at least 100 pages longer. So, yeah, cuts have to be made. I am really happy I got in Gawain and the Green Knight, though. I snuck that in by a whisker. Firstly, thank you. I really wanted it to feel like historical fiction within a historical fiction. World War II, by far. It's a historical period that has obviously been incredibly well documented, which in some ways obviously makes it really intimidating to research because you have to get it right. It is people's lived experience, but at the same time, it's also easy to research because if I want to find out what it was like to live through the London Blitz or be a fighter pilot during the Battle of Britain, or what rationing was effect at that exact date, or what people were wearing. The information was right there so many people have shared their experiences and memoirs. It's easy to go and just try to, get that right. Whereas Arthurian myth and legend is sprawling and enormous and multifaceted, and there's so many competing traditions, which means that not only is there a lot of research to do, which is the fun part, but it means that whatever choice you make when you come to set it down, you're cutting off so many others. So are you writing, post-Roman quasi-historical Arthur, which means that you lose all the castles and the armor and all the chivalric tradition that we associate with them. But on the other, are you following Mallory? Are you following Geoffrey of Monmouth? Are you following the Mabinogion? So, yeah, in the end, I just had to tell myself that I wasn't writing my definitive take on Arthurian legends. I'm not even sure what that would be. There isn't one. I was using the myth to write a very specific story, and ultimately all the choices I was making about what I was using, what I was not using, had to serve that story. And hopefully that's what I did.
I was saying I don't know much about King Arthur beside what do you call it? The Sword and the Stone. So I was like, so there's really a lot to learn in that book, and it made me really curious about King Arthur. So I hope it makes everybody else curious about it too. So now we're gonna jump into our questions for our panelists who are here live with us. My first question is for Naomi Ishiguro, author of the Rainshadow Orphans. Rainshadow City is a complicated place with shifting factions, futuristic technology, and wild magic. What were some of your inspirations for such an inventive world?
Yeah, so honestly, I started writing. Oh, firstly, hi everyone. Hi Ashley, thanks for having me. Um, yeah, thanks for being here. Yeah, I started writing this book and sort of planning it while working as a secondary school teacher. So it's like a high school teacher, and I think partly because I was planning lessons for the kids, as I'm sure a lot of you guys do. I was thinking sort of if things are fun and if it gets them sort of thinking and really like absorbed in like the aesthetic and the vibe of a world, then it kind of goes in because that was sort of the principle that I was having with my lessons. So it's quite maximalist in that like I've thrown in just lots of stuff that I think is just like if it was fun and I thought that it would be like just engaging and vibrant, then that was kind of a first principle. Like if it was fun, it went in. But I think also on a slightly deeper level, the book is it's sort of meant to be like a celebration of diaspora and multiculturalism. So it is kind of assembled out of a lot of cultural touchstones that have come from East Asia in various kind of forms and kind of washed up in the West because I, being half Japanese, kind of clung onto these and tried to sort of make sense of them as a kid growing up. So it's sort of like a kind of slightly mad collage of a lot of these elements of kind of shonen anime and like from Japan and like bubble tea from Taiwan and then like I like elements of cyberpunk and like things that came from like Naruto and Akira and Studio Ghibli. So it's a kind of hodgepodge of all sorts of things that I'm very enthusiastic about. Yeah.
I love how HG was like, I have to edit myself, and you're like, let's put it all in, put everything in there. I love that so much.
Minimalism and maximalism.
I love it. My next question is for Stephanie. We're talking about maximalism. I think time travel is so much fun, but I know it must add a lot of complexity to the writing. How do you keep track of timelines?
And so I lied to myself. I said I would never tell a story that involved time travel. And then I completely obliterated that um, because of what you just said, because keeping up with timelines and having to do all this math. And I'm like, I love science so that I didn't have to do more math. But when you're writing comics, you're doing math anyway. So I decided to try to keep it as simple as possible because for me, the time travel part of it was just part of the story, but not the actual story. The focus is on the familyness of it all, what you're willing to do, what it means to look back and trying to hold on to the past and always thinking of what was instead of, what currently is and what could be. So I try to treat time travel like an ecosystem which sounds insane, but I figured if time worked like an ecosystem and we got the moon involved, and that's how we solved climate change, if I make it believable enough for the folks reading this book, that is all that mattered. And now for this world, time travel is essentially serves as kind of like currency. Is like it's the thing that runs the economy, because people go back and get these very niche pop cultural things that even now, like I thought of Funko Pops. I thought of all the blind bags that comics is currently going through right now. All of these very, I don't know, things that I see when I'm at conventions that I'm like, maybe a few years from now, you're going to forget that you bought this, but they always seem to make a resurgence, like Rubik's Cubes and things like that. So the time travel part of it was just really funny enough, the lowest on the totem pole of like story structure wise. I was like, Time Cop did it. Johnny Mnemonic. I was thinking of all these early 90s late action movies that I enjoy, where the science kind of made sense, but you wasn't really here for the science. You were there to see the abs and to see whatever else was going on.
That makes me laugh because yeah, there's no like science. The science is like not sciencing in those movies at all, but it's all about the action. It's all about the fun, and this book is very fun. So I think you succeeded on that one. My next question is for Chiara, author of The Inn at the Foot of Mount Vengeance. I like how your book subverted the adventure that you normally find in fantasy for time spent in a quiet inn. That sounds amazing right now, actually. Why did you want to tell the story of the inn rather than the intimidating Mount Vengeance?
Yeah, so the inn and the mountain are, they are intrinsically linked, and the common thread is, the people that connect them, the adventurers that head to the inn to then take on the mountain. And I guess, this story could have been about this historian turned hero, like putting down the books and mastering magic and weapons and taking on the mountain, which is a kind of typical, central fantasy quest, maybe being the chosen one and things like that. But I wanted to write about a momentous journey that was actually a personal one. I wanted the story to be about finding community, finding your people, and about how when we go on difficult journeys in life and have experienced difficulties, we can still rest, we can still experience small joys, we can still experience comfort. So, and I like cozy fantasy because it kind of lends itself to telling, ordinary people in extraordinary worlds can still have extraordinary lives. So we've got this juxtaposition here of the looming mountain with its objective dangers and threats, trials to be conquered. And then there's the inn, which, actually contains various personal journeys and trials that have to be conquered within its walls as well.
I want to be really corny and be like, okay, your main character, he wasn't the chosen one, but he chose himself. That's what it felt like to me. Like, and it's very compelling the way that he kind of comes to this self-realization. So, my next question is for Kate, author of Portrait of a Witch Undone. I love a good heist. I love a good genre heist. And I was so happy that your book involves one of the most famous ones, the Isabella Stewart Gardner theft. If you know, you know. Why did you choose to use this astounding crime as a focus for your novel?
Oh my gosh, I just love that heist. It's just so cool. I grew up in northeastern Massachusetts, so it was always this like local legend for me. We went to the museum like once in high school, I think, and I was just like, oh my God. So for those who don't know, the museum itself, it's just so cool. Like this woman built this custom museum castle for her art, and she put all of her art in this museum castle thing. And she arranged it how she liked, and then she made it a public museum. But then in her will, she said that you can't change or alter anything, or else the museum gets liquidated and given to Harvard, which does not need the money. And so you go and it's exactly how she wanted you to see it, except for, of course, the stolen art, whose frame still hangs in the museum. So for those that don't know, in 1990 on St. Patrick's Day, in the middle of the night, two thieves dressed as cops, and they got entry to the museum, and they tied up the guards, and they were alone in the museum for 81 minutes pilfering art, which is like so long in terms of heist, just like a crazy amount of time. And they stole 13 works of art that have never been recovered. It's the largest unsolved art heist like in modern history. And there's like a $10 million reward still if you know where any of the art is. So if you do, don't keep it a secret. But it's just such a crazy local legend. And when the thieves stole these paintings, they cut the canvas out of the frames with a box cutter. So the frames are still there in the museum. And two of the larger Rembrandt frames, they're like 4 or 5 feet tall. These are massive canvases. So you go to the museum and you stand in the Dutch room and you look at the frame. And at least if you're me, you're like, I could walk through that and I would go somewhere. Like it really just feels like if you're a Chronicles of Narnia kid, it feels like you could, like, it's a portal, like you could go somewhere. And that's kind of how this story started to come to life for me. Also, because I wouldn't stop talking to my friends about the heist. And I was about to channel this information somewhere in a productive way. And so I ended up combining that with, of course, another New England classic, which is witches. And that's kind of how this book came to be.
That's fascinating. Again, it's like I think there's like there's podcasts, there's something on Netflix about it. Like it's so fascinating. So I'm so glad I'm not the only one who's like super into this. So I didn't grow up in Boston, so um, my next question is for Naomi. There are so many, we're talking about maximalism, right? There are so many viewpoints in this story. You've got a prince, a spy, a master of disguise, somebody who's not being truthful with themselves. Which was your favorite to write and why? Or can you choose? Like, is it like choosing your kids? I don't know.
It is a bit like I don't want to freak anyone out either. I think I'm making the book sound like it's sort of very extreme. I think there's 4 viewpoints really. Yeah, I think
I'm making it dramatic. I'm sorry.
no, I did really think about like I thought about this question. I was like, it's actually really, really hard to choose. I think the sort of main there is a one sort of main point of view character. Her name is Toshiko. She's like a 17-year-old. She's the youngest of these 3 kind of adoptive siblings. And she is kind of like our driving force through the narrative and who we sort of like mainly kind of return to as like our touch base character. And I think that was just kind of the most grounding point of view. And I think I also had a great time with experimenting with making her like very active in the narrative. Like she's quite impulsive and she like goes out and seeks things for herself. And she's kind of one of these young people that just sort of wants the world to be just and fair. And she wants to do something about it. And her decisions aren't necessarily always that sensible or thought through. So she has to sort of like deal with the consequences of those and sort of try and forge a path forward. But I liked writing quite an active character because I find often when you're writing, it's very easy for your characters to just sort of react to external circumstance coming at them. And you think, okay, what would I do? What's sensible? What would kind of a real person in the real world do? And it was actually very freeing to just be like, no, she's going to like put her pet cat in a bag and like go and like have a martial arts battle with this gangster in his gambling den at the docks. Like, of course she is. So I think I had the most fun kind of writing her story.
As an old person who definitely still makes impulsive, goofy decisions, I was like, you know what? I get it, Toshiko. I get the idea of going off to fight people with a cat in your backpack. I love it. My next question is for Stephanie. I know I have a 9-year-old and a 3-year-old. I know becoming a mom totally changed my worldview. How does becoming a mom change your protagonist, Savannah's outlook on life?
It has her wondering, not did I make the right choice, as in I regret this, but um now that I'm this mom, like, do I still have it? Like, am I all the other things that I was before? Because in the story, her son turns 10, so she kind of has like this 10-year itch a little bit. And for myself personally, having a child is what made me decide to go in a totally different direction career-wise. So it was like channeling that into this. And for my character, her life is going fairly well, from the outside looking in and even from the inside looking out. And I just thought it would be really fun and also just cathartic to just kind of explore this story through her where, you know, life is going well, but that doesn't mean that you're satisfied with that. And we always see these stories sometimes where men get to see, do I still have it? And I just wanted to give this Black woman a chance to do the same thing and go on this adventure, even if it's something as silly as getting a retro game. I mean, essentially she uses that as an excuse to actually go do the thing. You know, she's already a mom, so you might as well make the bad decisions based on that. So I don't know, like I just think of my child puts so much stuff in perspective, and a lot of it is no longer just sitting and thinking about doing something and actually doing it, because time just goes so fast. Like having a child just warps your perception of time, and that's also playing into this book as well. So yeah, like I just want to show like, yeah, she's a parent, but also like she has all these other hats, and I wanted to explore that and what it means to wear all these different hats and sometimes miss maybe the one that you thought you gave up for a better life, and you really did, but you want to see if you still got it.
Yeah, the idea of like not being satisfied, even though everything seems like it's on the right path, is I feel like very relatable. And it was like, oh, okay, like it's like, okay, what do I need to be doing to get to the point where I am satisfied, where I am doing what I want to do? And so I thought Savannah was really relatable in that way. So this question is for Chiara. Yet again, academia. I went through a big dark academia phase. So, and again, I'm like, okay, academia and fantasy come together to make a compelling protagonist. Did you have any experiences in academia that inspired Ainsworth's journey?
Um, yeah, I think my undergraduate experience kind of formed the foundations of Ainsworth's character. So Ainsworth is my protagonist. When I went to university, I was the first person in my family to go to university. I come from a working class background, and I was not quite prepared for how out of place I would feel. And it was very much like a constant battle to like keep my head above water while like working multiple jobs and trying to study and fit in and things like that. So with Ainsworth, there was a kind of similar start there, but I wanted to see what would happen if I took a character and sort of said, right, who is this person if they completely lose themselves to this need to conform, if they completely lose themselves in pursuit of ambition and this like constant need to prove themselves to other people. Um, so those kind of like feelings, I guess, kind of like originated there. When it comes to our postgraduate academic careers, that's where our experiences differ because Ainsworth is much, much better than I am at writing funding applications and securing research grants. So our paths deviate very much from that point onwards.
Yeah, it was kind of, I was like, oh, that must be nice. To
Right?
just
Yeah.
get a check and just go. I was like, oh, okay, this really is a fantasy. This is new for me.
Yeah.
My next question is for Kate. I'm a librarian. I know a lot of people in the audience are librarians. I enjoy seeing libraries in fiction, which is why I was delighted when Maeve, your protagonist, goes into a hidden magical section of the Boston Public Library to do research. So now next time I go to Boston, I gotta go look for that. What kind of research did you have to do for your book?
Ooh. Yeah, I came into this thinking that I knew so much about the Gardner heist, and I quickly realized I did not know so much about the Gardner heist.
That's so funny. I'm so sorry.
No, it was really fun. It was really fun to deep dive in what was already one of my interests. But one of the most fun research topics actually was learning about all the paintings and all the art themselves, because in the book, all the art was stolen to be like spell objects in this big magic spell to imprison this like marsh monster. And so as part of the research, I was looking up just facts about the paintings and trying to learn ways that I could kind of retroactively fit them into building this spell and kind of try to build a case around why these objects in specific were stolen. And that was really fun because I learned a lot about the objects, but always kind of in the context of, oh, they're gone. So it was cool to learn just like about them in general in isolation. But as far as research goes in the Gardner, as you said, there are so many good resources out there. Like I love the Last Scene podcast. That was super cool. I've read Master Thieves. I just read the most recent book that came out a few months ago by the FBI art crimes director about the heist. And one of the most fun things for me about writing more contemporary fantasy is deciding when you want to like jump off the cliff and go, it's magic now. Don't worry about it. And like when you want to deviate from reality. So like it's not really a spoiler, but like in my book, I do not deal with the mobs. I don't deal with the 10 different suspects all named Bobby for some reason. Like I don't deal with any of the more like true crimey, oh, the art was seen in these places and we think it went here. Although that I think that's super interesting. I kind of jumped the shark when I'm like, no, the heist, it was done by witches, and the object true crime is going to be a fascination for a different novel or just to know. But it is such a really cool rabbit hole if you're interested in true crime at all. It's a really cool investigation.
I think that's like the power of writing. Like all of a sudden you're like, okay, and then Deus Ex Machina, a wizard
Yeah,
appeared. Like I
exactly.
love it. That's so funny. My next question is for Naomi. The Kawakami siblings, the found family that we keep talking about, they often use the term to fly above the river. What does it mean in the context of the story, and what does it mean to you personally?
Yeah, thank you for this question. It's a really nice one. So they have this like family mantra, these characters that was given to them by their aunt, who is a sort of key character in the story, even though she's passed away. So it's sort of like a revenge plot in many ways of them sort of trying to get revenge for this woman's death, who kind of brought them up. And her sort of core thing she taught them was that they need to be able to fly above the river like the birds. And they say this to each other as a kind of motivating thing. And it really means within their family. I just made it up. It's not like a real thing. It means that you don't get caught up in the current of the river, and you should like even no matter what your circumstances, you have to like work to and imagine like know that you can fly above a river, and choose which direction that you want to go in, and you don't have to just go where the current of your life seems to be taking you. And I think that very much came for me from teaching again, because yeah, I was teaching in some schools where kids were dealing with like very challenging circumstances, and it was really inspiring to me to see just their ability to fly above the river, like how they didn't kind of just accept things and sort of get carried along with them. They kind of really wanted to make their lives and the world and like better, and to help their families, and to they take an interest in things, and they were just amazing, inspiring kids. So I kind of wanted my protagonists to have that as a kind of mantra in their family, that they had a choice in their lives, no matter what their circumstances.
I was on mute, so you didn't hear me, but I was like, oh my God, no, it totally is a thing now. It's a thing. You made it a thing. I love it.
I hope so. I'd like it if it was a thing.
Yeah, for sure. There's definitely something to think about, like, we're talking about with Stephanie, the path of your life and how like it's going one way and you're like, but it could be better in some other ways. And so, I think it's a thing. I've been thinking about it since I read the book. So, I think it
I'm
works.
glad.
Speaking of Stephanie, this next question is for her. I am from Chicago. If you've seen on any of my panels, I probably talk about it. I'm one of those people from Chicago that loves to tell you that she's from Chicago, even if even if you didn't ask. I just like volunteer that information. And so I was delighted by all the local references. Savannah and her family live in Chicago, even if most of them are a little off kilter from what I know. And I think we have a picture of one. This is when Savannah time travels. She goes to this mall, and this mall is not named that, and it doesn't look like that, and it's not located in that place. But like I was like, oh, I see it's all kind of come together. So which was the most fun Chicago reference for you to add to the story? And you
So
see
it
the art
actually
style too, it's
was
really cool.
so it actually
Sorry.
was River Oaks Mall. But I was like,
Ooh,
I don't legally, I don't want to get in trouble or anything like that. So I just remixed everything. So I'm glad you picked up on Ford City, because that's what it's supposed to look like. And then I was like, yeah, Dalton Mall, because also South Side, so South Suburbs, and also of course the hundreds and stuff like that. And I think the fun part about this was the research, because a lot of it was calling up friends. That part, quite I never really get to research in that way. It's always either like an academic thing or reading older works. But this one, my research really was the group chat and saying, hey, like, do you remember this? Do you remember when we would go to the mall and like sometimes folks would be performing? I remember having a conversation with a friend about seeing the Wild Wild West at the Crestwood, the AMC Theater in Crestwood, and there was a live performance. And for the longest, everyone thought I made it up. And I'm like, I did not make it up. And I finally found the news clipping for that. So, if anything, researching just all the places that I grew up with finally led me to the vindication that I have been fighting for the last 20 years, in convincing people that they did perform the Wild Wild West theme song at this theater. But it was just really fun. And I love that if you grew up in the area, it's very much a So even though the names are a little remixed, you're able to put two and two together because, going to River Oaks Mall, because at one point it was an open air mall until they closed it, like that was a big thing, a lot of great memories. So I was happy to infuse that in here. Another reason why I should probably do more time travel stuff.
No, it was making me laugh because I remember I lived by Evergreen Park, and so there was a concert there that went badly. And nobody got hurt, but it was just like a hot mess. And so I just remember, like, if it was Ray J or Little Bow Wow or somebody like that. Anyway, sorry. Enough about me. Let's talk to Chiara next. At the end of your book, you mentioned that your setting, Salt Court, I should have asked you how to pronounce that. I was confident, is based in Scottish culture and folklore. Can you tell us your favorite bit of folklore that you added to the story?
Yeah, so when I was creating the world, I wanted to embellish it with some Scottish folklore. There's a lot of little nods and kind of like hints towards it throughout. And the favorite piece of kind of like nod towards Scottish folklore that I included in the book is that of the Maiden Stone. So the Maiden Stone is a Pictish standing stone in Aberdeenshire. And there are various, stories surrounding like its origins and what does it mean and what does it represent and things like that. And one of the stories about this standing stone is that, very long time ago, a young woman met a stranger in that spot, and the stranger bet her that he could build a path to the top of the nearest mountain before she could bake a batch of bannocks. Bannocks being the kind of like Scottish oatcakes that are mentioned in the book as well. So the woman agreed to this, thinking it was a very easy bet. But the stranger was actually the devil in disguise and very quickly made the path up to the mountain. And because she lost the bet, the woman was subsequently turned into the standing stone. So there is a nod towards that interpretation of that tale in the book, which I kind of liked putting in.
One thing that's so interesting, like I feel like every time I have one of these panels, I draw these connections. And so there's a lot of like old mythology and like new being made mythology in these books at the same time, whether it be if there's a concert or at a mall or whether there be this woman. And I'm like, why would you make a deal with somebody you don't know? That was a crazy choice to me. I would never do that. But the mythology there is so interesting. And I feel like every culture has like that deal with the devil that you never should make. So that's really interesting. Thank you. And I know what you're talking about, so that's really cool. And my next question is for Kate. Portrait of a Witch Undone has a magic system that to me seems both simple and complex. What's inspired the mechanics?
Yeah, so in Portrait, the magic system is you craft spells based on emotion and memories, and these can either be from a person in the moment or they can be from an object like the Gardner paintings. And I basically crafted it this way for drama. At the point in revisions, I knew that Maeve's character arc was going to be about recovering from this mistake she made in the past, and I wanted to build a world that would challenge her as much as possible and just be the most difficult place for her to exist to try to get her to change somehow. And so having to kind of recall her past and draw from memories of the time before the incident, it's always the incident, right? Was such a good way to keep her kind of in that place of discomfort. And I also made this choice again for the drama between characters, because when you're casting a spell with somebody and you're using a memory, that person can also kind of sense your memory or your vibe or what you're feeling. And so when you have characters who are lying to each other or keeping secrets, it's kind of extra fun to add these stakes of like, not only will the spell work, but also will the person I'm casting with, like my friend or my love interest, sense that I'm hiding something. And of course, as we all know, the best way to not think about something is to think about how much you shouldn't be thinking about it. So that was kind of the inspiration for the system.
I don't know why authors always want to torture their like characters. Like, okay, what's the most discomfort I could put this person into? Like, maybe that's another question for another time. And I was gonna say, I keep forgetting to say because I'm so caught up in this conversation. We're getting, if you guys have any questions, if the audience has any questions, please put them in the Q&A or the chat, maybe, or I don't know what's there. Q&A, and we'll be happy to get them in if we can. My next question is for Naomi. This is a story about magic and technology, but I think at its heart, the Rainshadow Orphans is about family. Correct me if I'm wrong. What aspect of family is most important to Toshiko?
Yeah, so I think you're right. I think it is about family, and I'm going to extend that slightly. It's sort of about solidarity. I often write about kind of solidarity across cultural boundaries. That's like I have another novel published in the UK that's is literally called Common Ground. It's slightly too on the nose there, maybe. Um, but I think it's very much that kind of territory and that kind of theme that I wanted to explore. So for Toshiko and her siblings, they aren't actually like blood siblings. And I'm very much someone that doesn't. I've sort of built. I'm an only child. I've sort of built my own found family out of friends, kind of over the years. And I think it's kind of an amazing thing that they can be from like all sorts of different backgrounds and countries and contexts. And like all three siblings, they're so close, but they do have like one of them's from like what I call the mainland, so he's a different first language. They all have different like relationships with their birth parents and they're sort of carrying different things. And I love that you can still feel kind of the bonds of solidarity and family and really kind of genuinely like have someone's welfare and best interests and sort of love them and have all of that at heart. And you are family, even if you aren't sort of born to that. And I think being able to extend that empathy and care kind of across to people who aren't just our immediate circle is kind of like what will like save us all, I guess. So I kind of wanted to like encode that in my main trio of protagonists there, really.
Yeah, again, I'll be corny, and it's like I think those connect. I think you're right. I think those connections are what save us. Like, because we may not look the same, or we may not sound the same, we may not be from the same place, but those connections and those like that love is still there, and I think that's really beautiful. My next question is for Stephanie. This is like one of my favorite things to ask comic authors because this varies so much from comic to comic. But how much input, and I obviously you had some, how much input did you have in the visual style of the graphic novel? Did you work closely with Asia Fulmore? That's the very cool I think she does inks. Did you do the inks or the
Yeah,
colors? I can't remember.
she did inks and pencils.
Inks and pencils.
DJ Chavez is our colorist, but the great thing about working with Asia is Sanford Green introduced us at a convention, which was really dope. And I knew the moment that we met, I was already a fan of her art because some stuff she did with DC Comics, and I didn't have to hold her hand, which is beautiful. Asia was ready to show up. I love that her style is more manga-esque because that is what the kids are reading. That just quite simply is it. Webtoons are very popular, and I thought what better way to get more people into reading, hopefully more Western comics by through her art style. So I just loved it, and I knew that I didn't have to like put things down like make sure they're wearing bonnets and stuff like that before they go to bed because she was already going to do that. um yeah, like I was very hands off. Asia, she got it. Like I put my reference photos or my links in where I needed to, but the beautiful thing about comics is like you're working with other talented people and you just give them space to do their thing, and she did.
Yeah, I don't think it would be. It seems like it wouldn't be fun. I've never written a comic, but it seems like it wouldn't be fun to have to like handhold. Like if that was the case, then you would be the artist too. Like let them do their magic,
And
and if
I
there's
can draw.
I can't. Yeah, me neither. So I totally get it. That I was gonna ask, okay, Kiara, the least surprised. I'm very nosy. Okay, I'll say curious. I'm curious about people, and so I always read like the afterword. I always like Google like the artists and like see if there's anything else I've read by them. And the least surprising thing about this book for me when I finished and I saw that you were a Dungeons and Dragons player, you had a campaign going. The D&D vibes are strong here. If this is something that you are into, audience, it is very clear, and I mean that in the most complimentary way possible. I also do Dungeons and or Dragons, so if the Mishnik Inn was a D&D campaign, which character would you want to play? I'm just gonna tell you, I would want to play Ash. She's a shapeshifter, but she's also kind of mean, and I like that. Like I like a kind of mean character. So I'm just curious, what character would you want to play, if any? Or would you make your own? I
Um,
mean,
no offense to like all the other characters I created, but Ash, as you have picked, is definitely the best character to play in a campaign. She's going to be great in a combat round. I think I would probably play Honey. That's the innkeeper in the book. And I think just because, every single D&D party ever has probably encountered an innkeeper at some point in their campaign. So I guess I'd quite like to subvert that a little bit and put the innkeeper in the adventuring party just to see what happens.
There's a really cute game I haven't played, but there is one where like you're a retired adventuring party and you start your own tavern. And so it's more like a
Sounds
cozy game,
great.
more so than like combat. Combat to me is the most boring part of D&D. So I really need to play it with all the free time and energy that I have, so maybe in like 20 years or so.
Oh, that
We
sounds
are
great.
Yeah, it's fun. I can't remember what it's called. I'll think of it. I'll let you know. But it is really cute. This is my last question that I have. Audience, please reach out. I mean, well, I don't mind giving people back their time, but like if you guys have more that you want to ask these authors, please feel free to, because we have the time and we have the energy and we have the talent. My last question is for Kate. The tension between what Maeve wants and what everyone else in her life wants was the most compelling part of the story for me. Were you ever, I love when authors are like, oh yeah, my character did this and I didn't know they were going to do it. I'm like, aren't you writing it? But I never wrote a book. So, were you ever surprised by the choices she made, even as you wrote them, or did you have it all under control?
I think yes and no. The
Oh my
biggest
God.
surprise for me was like the kind of challenges that she needed. And basically, as you were saying before, it's like my original method of torturing my characters was not as effective as I thought it was going to be. So to use like honestly D&D parlance, right? Like Maeve is a very like jock character for me to write. She'd be like a paladin or a barbarian kind of lady knight archetype, which was a new thing for me as far as my writing. So originally I was like, oh, I'm gonna put her like she's gonna go through the frame and kind of be in this upside down world full of like a hostile environment, and there will be creatures and there'll be a little horror, and then she's gonna find her friend. And obviously, when you find your friend, that like feels like a natural place for the book to end. But then I got there so fast because she was just so good at being in this hostile environment. It really felt like kind of going through her arc and like reclaiming her confidence in the kind of physical fighting tangible problem realm was like the babyest of baby steps. And I was like, no, it's so much more interesting and dramatic and hard for you to go back to the real world and hash it out with like your mom, your friends, your coven, your place in this legacy. And so I was kind of surprised that this did end up being such like an internal struggles character because I really had to go put her in a place that she would be really bad at meeting all of those conflicts because they're just not her style to kind of force her to grow and create that discomfort.
Yeah, it's really funny as you're saying this. I was like, yeah, no, I mean, the physical stuff that she has to do, the physical fight that she has is difficult, obviously, but I think she'd rather do that 100 times than like deal with her mom and deal with like the pressures of
Absolutely.
the coven. And I was like, you know what? I get it. Like, I get that. My mom is cool, but like, I can see that being an issue at times. Um, yeah, so that's my last question. Panelists, is there anything else you want to talk about? Is there anything else you want to, tell us about your book, anything that I missed. I sometimes am occasionally wrong. So like if there's anything that you want to tell us about your book, you want to make sure people leave with, let us know. But if not, that's why I'm putting on this pressure. I'm sorry. Someone says they're adding all of these books to the bestseller order list for the library. A truly wonderful conversation. I also miss the excitement that was the mall on the weekend in the 80s and 90s. That is so true. It's crazy. Like our local mall is still busy, but like it's not like it was back in the day, and it's definitely not like a hangout. They have all these rules where like the teenagers can't hang out by themselves, so it's very locked down compared to what it used to be. But um, yeah. Oh, thank you so much. Okay. All right. Any more insights you want to share? Any I guess important bon mots? I'm trying to think of the right word, but oh, thank you. Everyone, Dawn asks, I'd love to know what is on your nightstand. I could talk about that, but if you guys want to go first, we still got a few minutes, so
Uh, what am I currently? I read a lot of romance novels when I'm not reading comics.
mm,
That's like my go-to. Actually been going through Beverly Jenkins' earlier catalog.
yeah.
Yeah, I said that I didn't like historical romance, and I lied to myself. I lied to myself a lot, clearly. But
No, it's learning.
I've
You're
been
learning about yourself. It's not a lie.
I am. But I've been reading Jewel by Beverly Jenkins, which has been phenomenal.
Yeah, my mom used to read those books and she would like steal my book covers so she would hide them. And I was like, no, let your freak flag fly. Let everybody know you're reading Beverly Jenkins. I'm not a romance person, but the little bit I've read of Beverly Jenkins has been really good. So, all right, that's my next thing to try. I'm reading it's called I think it's called The Unbroken by C.L. Clark, and it's like a military fantasy, which I thought there would be less military and more fantasy, but it is really good. And I'm almost done, and I'm like, man, there's more books in the series. I'm like, well, I guess I got some more work to do. So, oh, Beverly's the goat. She is wonderful. And she seems like a really nice person too. Any more insights into what you're reading, guys?
I just finished reading Escape from the Library at Hellbore by Cassandra Caw. It was
Oh
so good,
yeah.
but whenever I read them, I'm always like, I should make my writing gorier. I can be creepier. It's kind of like a dark academia, like horror slasher, basically, with all these students hiding in the library, and there's so much gore. And I'm like, I gotta take some notes and make my next book even grosser. I've been inspired.
Oh my God. Oh, I'm so squeamish, but I love the idea of like a library slasher. So I'm like, maybe I'll try it. Someone else asked about next projects, if you guys can talk about it. So we've got a couple of thoughts if you guys would like to share. If you would still talk about like obviously what you're reading, but
I can jump in super quick because I think my answer like answers both of them. So
nice.
I just finished. It's terrible to admit, but I only just read A Wizard of Earthsea by Ursula K. Le Guin.
I just reread that too.
So good. It's so
I
beautiful.
need to read through the rest of them.
Yeah, but I was just so astounded by how good it is. But I loved how she like talks about like how just like a really mindful relationship with
Hmm.
elements of the natural world.
Hmm.
That's something there's a kind of magical force within my book called Solar, which is kind of based on ideas of I guess chi, but it's kind of like a force that kind of moves through all living and natural things in the world. And I'm looking at kind of expanding that into sort of more ecological themes for the second book in my
Hmm.
trilogy. So it's kind
Yeah,
of it all feeds in. So that was
yeah.
my two answers to my one answer to two questions.
Nice.
Thank you for the question.
Nice.
Well, thank you,
Yeah.
everyone.
If there are any Wonder Woman fans, I'm writing Wonder Woman again. The main line 35 and 36, a retelling of Diana becoming Wonder Woman. So the contest portion told through the eyes of Steve Trevor. So I get to lean
Oh,
into the romance of it all. And I said, let me
that's
write this
awesome.
like a Beverly Jenkins or a Brenda Jackson. So I'm excited about that. And if you like Monarch Legacy of Monsters, which just wrapped up season 2, I wrote a Kate and May story in an anthology that will be out July 15th. Very interpersonal because those girls are messed up. Like they got a lot of trauma. So we had to explore that. I think Godzilla might shows up once, but Godzilla isn't the most scariest thing. Dealing with your trauma is for
Oh
them at
no.
least. So
That
that'll be out July 15th.
I'll take the library slasher over that. I'm not doing that. That sounds dramatic. But also, did you guys see the flex? Oh, I'm ready for Wonder Woman again. Like, okay, thank you so much for that.
I
I
just
love
wrapped up.
it. No, I love it. I love it. Any other
What's
thoughts?
Chiara reading? You haven't told us, have you?
Oh, so I have an arc of This Divine Revelry by B. Fitzgerald. So it's a young adult reimagining of Ariadne's story.
Ooh.
So I think B. Fitzgerald's first book, Girl, Goddess, Queen, I think it just kind of recently came out in the US. They are fantastic young adult reimaginings of Greek myths. I really, really enjoy them. And I guess I'm kind of working on my second book at the moment. I guess I won't say too much about it, but it's set in the same world
Nice.
as my
That was my hope.
my first one, but it's not like a sequel, so it's like a standalone. So I've had a lot of fun playing around in like this world that I've created. It's been good fun.
Okay, when you said that, I was like, okay, please let it be in the same world because, like, I think it's really cute and it's really sweet. I don't mean that in like a diminishing way. I think it's just like a very
No, totally.
cozy, nice place to be. So, like, I was like, okay, good. Um, okay, I think we are almost at time. So, I will stop rambling. Thank you all for being here today, for being present, for your conversation in the comments and with our authors. We are going to pause now for a quick break. So if you haven't already, make sure that you visit the exhibit hall. Thank you all so much for your wonderful books. I'm so like everybody should be excited to read them. Somebody said they're putting them on the list. Like please read them all because they're wonderful. Thank you guys so much.